Well, we are live now. I can put the live link in the chat so that everyone can jump in, because Terry hasn't found the invitation, the Hangout thread, or the post yet. So I'll put the live link out for him.
All right. So I have something to ask you, Ammon.
Go on.
Have you had any clients or anyone see a big drop after the mobile update based on the number of pages on their site that might be mobile friendly, a la Panda type percentages?
I haven't, but I have been hearing a lot of people saying that they think something new Panda-wise has been coming along. Now, to be honest, they've been going on about Panda for so long, I think they see almost anything as Panda right now.
It's true.
No, I haven't seen it directly, but I am hearing of a lot of changes at the moment.
Yeah, we noticed some really funky stuff happening the second, third week in May. So we're playing around with a lot of things right now. It's interesting.
Upside downs, Grant. Upside downs.
Well, depends who you talk about. I mean, from our standpoint, we're seeing some challenges. How's that?
Oh, okay. Yeah. But I was going to say, ultimately, I think often we kind of forget that Panda is kind of still rolling. You know, it's like when a site is massive and it's just getting crawled over and over and over, and all the signals are being passed around, presumably. I often see projects where week on week there's like this tiny little drop down, a little bit less, a little bit less. Tiny. It's like it could be 10 fewer visits this week compared with last week, and then the week after it's 10 fewer visits compared with the week before. Yeah. So instead of things going steadily upwards, as you kind of assume when things are kind of just not huge amounts happening, you just like getting on with it. It's like the opposite, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense, and it's just that, you know, the timing was really interesting. You know, we had a lot of things happening. We launched a new site, we did this, we did that, lots of things, but then there's a definite something happened the third week in May that is, how can one say, it looks like it's affecting, it's from Google traffic, and it looks like it's affecting many pages from a site speed standpoint, but on desktop. So it feels like an extension of mobile-friendly speed type thing, you know? But it could, that's just one extrapolation. We're still digging into a lot of things, but it's interesting.
Or an expansion of AMP could be that they're starting to look at as well.
Yeah. It's just interesting because we're seeing desktop and mobile, you know?
Right, for people just jumping in, this is the Bogus Hangout. We don't have Bill right now. He had a dentist appointment today and may not be making it back in time or at all. We do have Terry, we do have Kristin of the usual crew. I haven't yet seen Jen. I am joined also by Dawn and Grant, who have both been on before. If you don't know them, shame on you. You should have tuned in before this, you know. So Grant is just telling us about his week, really, or rather, recent traffic changes that have been keeping him busy this week. Bit of it's always tough when something big changes, because you have to really then start doing the tests to narrow it down, don't you?
Yeah, I think, and that's the biggest challenge when you have a really big site. Hi, Chris. It's when you have a really big site, is that there's a lot of testing to do and a lot of potential changes having happened. So first off, you have to isolate which bits of the site are you seeing being affected. Then you've got to try and narrow them down based on some kind of hypothesis. And then you've got to work from that and say, well, what else changed out there? What can I attribute to Google, and what can I attribute to internal strife? Because more often than not, something gets screwed up somewhere else. So yeah, it's interesting and keeping me busy.
Yeah, and for me, always the toughest is challenging yourself not to make assumptions. When you're trying to test something, it's easy to think, oh, this will test this. Yeah, it may also test 6 other things that you haven't thought of yet. and you really have to kind of eliminate the ability for anything else to affect that, or to at least run different tests where not the same other thing could affect it, and run enough of those so that you can then isolate the factor indirectly.
At the same time, putting...
You could do that. You can't do that anymore.
No.
We don't, even Moz does not have the capabilities to isolate stuff the way Google can. It's a waste of time.
I wouldn't say it's a waste. I'd say it's always a good opportunity to test your mental muscles and keep it going. But this is why I have and need 30 test sites. It takes that many. Because you have to change the degree of various... Yeah, you can't eliminate things, Terry, but what you do is you change the degree of them, and if you don't see a degree change in the results, then obviously it's irrelevant. It's tough. It is tough, and you've really got to study how tests are done. You've really got to know your scientific principles and be able to run dozens of test groups where you've got, you know, some that are controlled, some that are uncontrolled, some that are testing this thing, some that are testing another thing, and really, really dig into that data and just keep going until you've got an answer. And sometimes, you're not going to get a definitive.
I think it is easier actually on a big site. If you've got a big site, you can split into sections, you know, 200,000 URLs, like 50 categories. You can test. I'm sure that Grant will probably understand on this, and yourselves, loads of you. But I tend to add categories as separate properties in Search Console, for instance, so that I can drill down into, you know, into that as like a mini site almost, and test different things. So, for instance, I'll have a category that I'm thinking, right, if I expand all the content out on this section of this, you know, the part of the site, what will be the impact upon the grandchildren of those category pages? You know, so
I tend to think more of that as split testing, though, rather than the kind of research where you need multiple sites, because what you want to do is eliminate that domains effect, where you need to have multiple domains in different companies as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
different times when the changes in your money or your life searches, well, if you're not comparing your money or your life sites against non-your money or your life sites, you're not going to see it.
Yeah, you're never going to get the same effect, you know, with a church site against a, you know, a porn site. Not that I have any porn sites, but you get it.
Oh, how many church sites do you have?
You haven't been doing church porn?
Yes, you know, I haven't got any church.
That's where I learned. That's where I started.
You get the gist of it, though, don't you?
Okay, yeah.
No. Jesus porn is big.
It just hasn't changed that much. Like what I did 15 years ago, I still only pretty much do that and have no trouble ranking at all. Have I added things that Google wanted, like using nofollow properly or implementing schema? Yeah, but essentially SEO doesn't change. What works?
Well, ultimately, it's how sites are crawled, isn't it? It's the fundamentals and the fundamentals of information retrieval. End of.
All you can really do is control what Google sees, and they're playing tricks with this. I wanted to talk about the interview you did last Sarah Ammon. Personally, duplicate content is penalized. They just don't call it a penalty.
It's not a penalty. It's not a penalty. It's not a penalty. There are things that
it is a waste, though. It is a waste. It's a waste of budget. It's a waste.
It's like saying, oh, if I write really bad content, the public are penalising me. No, they're not. It's just a fact of life. It's like calling rain a weather penalty. It's not. Rain is needed. It's part of the ecology. There are seasons to all things.
I'm doing a massive test at the moment, which hopefully I'll have the results of in like about a month, based on the removal of any type of filler content, from like 200,000 URLs immediately, So no repetition of any element, if you like. And I'll be interested. It's just for me personally. I want to see whether it actually has an impact overall. Yeah.
You're talking about spun content. Sorry.
No, it's not spun content. It's just content that relates to two categories, for instance. So maybe it's shown in, Grant will know a lot of the sort of directory type sites often have places where the same content will show because it actually belongs in 2 places or 10 places or 50 places. So I'm doing some tests with trying to eliminate duplication of that.
Let's get rid of the generalities. Here's ultra specific, Terry. We took a music site that had 50,000 items in the database. We repaginated, we ordered it so you could have the pages with and without images, so you could have it in this order, that order, by price, by artist. We've got tons of ways of spinning this content. We turned it into a 5 million page site from these 50,000 items in the database. This was at the time when everyone said there was a Google penalty. We're talking 2004. The site suffered no loss of traffic. It got an increase in traffic, even though there were at least 20 textually identical versions of every single page. What happened was they don't all show.
Yeah, and they don't all rank, Hammond. That's the point. They don't all rank. Because
the thing is, because there were so many more versions, we had more chance of matching more long tail searches than ever before.
But the head terms are the ones that usually suffer.
Well, we didn't see any suffering. We saw the exact same pages that had always ranked. It's just the duplicates didn't turn up. Why would they? But we weren't cannibalizing. We weren't having any trouble with it. Now, Dawn, it was a high authority site.
Yeah,
it had.
You could probably get away with it on that kind of site.
It had enough page rank that we were going to be able to get 5 million pages indexed.
Yeah, other signals, But I would say that kind of thing, really. I mean, I've tested loads of that. Where you fill it with this and you think, oh well, there's not enough content on that page. I'll just add a bit from there, and I'll add a bit from this category, and what I find is that you can never quite get to those top spots with a single URL, because everything, you've got like multiple candidates for the exact same query, and you kind of
things have changed, and sometimes you are splitting where the links are going to go. But the thing is, you've already got the link
anyway. If you've got the strength from other signals, then fair enough. But if you haven't quite got all those other signals in a row, then it makes it.
To kick this back to Terry, no loss of traffic, an increase in traffic. Please tell me how that's a penalty.
I'm thinking more of where people are scraping sites.
Well, they are being penalised for being bloody idiots who haven't got an original business idea in their heads.
Hold on 1 second. I resemble that.
That's not a fair statement. Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry, it is. Look, this is
the real world. I have a friend who's been publishing for 15 years, and all their stuff is on multiple sites, stolen, right? And Google gives all the links that are pointed at their site, the original. Those links pass to the site that Google decides is the one they're going to put in the results. That's been proven. So that is the penalty.
Why is he letting more authoritative sites have his content without filing DMCAs? But more importantly, why are those other sites more authoritative if he's the original? Because that's where his business is going wrong. Why are you letting other people have the authority?
You're assuming the business has gone wrong. It hasn't. Right? Well, it's not right that is happening. That's all.
I asked for examples the other day, and nobody could provide one.
No, but I've seen this happening in the Netherlands quite often, and basically it's because the original publisher is fucking up. They've migrated stuff, and they've lost all 404s and lost all the link value, and then the other pages start ranking, and they go like, why is he ranking with my scraped content? When you dig in deeper,
and it's fresher. So it goes to, it gets...
No, but actually it isn't fresher.
Because it's...
What I'm saying is you need to dig a little deeper, and then you'll find stuff.
That's right. This is incremental. I think to Terry's point, to this first bit, nothing happens in a vacuum. And I think we often assume that this is, yeah.
I
agree with Terry.
When Google says things that stops guys like that don't have the same amount of experience from looking deeper and thinking deeper outside of the box.
Well, I think they did that, and everyone's failed to rise to the challenge. I think Google have said, there is no duplicate content filter. You need to go back and think about what's happening. There's a filter, but it's not a penalty. You need to go back, accept that as the truth, and you will learn by what's really going on. And unfortunately, instead everyone's going, well, I've seen something that looks like it, so I'm going to say Google's making it up. And that is such a disservice.
It's very funny when a green man is dancing on screen. Thank you.
I'll tell you what else loads of people do as well. They have they say, oh, there's no such thing as a duplicate, or they'll say there's a duplicate penalty. But what they do is they use things like internal links to point to multiple duplicates of each other accidentally, yeah. And none of those links are none of those pages are gonna rank, because how can Google decide which is the right one when they are pretty much exactly the same? One signal's saying this, the other signal's saying that. So as you said, it's not nothing that happens in a vacuum. It's the other signals as well that all contribute together.
I think what you said before, Dawn, on some big sites, we tend to say about there might be some duplicate content, but through good internal linking, through canonicalizing, through no indexing, not sculpting, but just making sure the right page shows up for the right query, you can still send value from multiple pages.
Yeah. It's the combination of all the signals, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
To me,
that's the biggest challenge.
If you have duplicate content on your website, you're not doing a good job. You have to deal with that.
You have got duplicate content on your website.
And the thing is, and a decent solution is no index it for a start. Yeah.
Well, that's the worst way to fix it.
Every site out there has duplicate content.
It should be attached to something. Canonicalize it. Or 301 it.
Well, when you have like 1.5 million pages in the index, then you need to get rid of them somehow. So the best way for me is just initially no index. You can't canonicalize no index. You can't do it.
I could show you lots of times I've come across where that was the solution, and it actually was worse after than before.
Yeah.
I have a question that I want to go back to before we keep going forward. Terry, you said that your friend's business isn't suffering, right?
Right.
Okay, so then it may not even be something that's worth it to him to
but
do.
It's still not right. It's still not right. It's still not right. That's stealing, right? Now, this is happening on a lot of sites, right? So they have not just 1 or 2 people copying their stuff. They've been publishing since the 90s. So that's a lot of content for a small business to manage.
Yeah.
So they're making money, but it's not right that they have to fix that and are basically getting link equity pulled right off their site.
Right, so let me see if I've got the facts straight here, Terry. You're saying that there is a duplicate content penalty effectively, that filtering works as a penalty, because, this is your evidence, because sites are using duplicate content to win.
Yeah.
So they're not being penalised, the ones that are doing the scraping, they're simply doing the other parts right and beating it.
Okay, so what if that is supported by, like, my buddy who can beat almost anybody using Black Hat, right? These are the sites that are doing it to them that we couldn't compete with, shouldn't have to compete with that, especially on stuff that's, 15 years old. It's
one of the reasons I always say, business is tough is because, you know what? You always have to contend with the charlatans. You always have to contend with the fly-by-nights. You always have to contend with people who promise the earth and don't deliver. It doesn't matter what business you're in.
I totally agree. But the thing is, right? Google tracks every link on every page and tracks every page from inception. So I'm sorry, but they do know when someone gets scraped.
Not necessarily. There are thousands of false positives when you try that, because one site had a robots text up and you didn't see its content for the first 3 years, or it simply didn't have any links to it. And just because somebody else was there first, should that site, now that it's removed that problem, be penalised because it's seen as the scraper of its own content? There's lots of times where, you know, just because something was online first doesn't mean it was the originator. There's tons of examples of that.
To me, Google can say it's a penalty. I really don't care, right? But I don't agree with it. That's all I'm saying.
You know, if we go around saying, oh, there's a duplicate content penalty, then it ignores the fact that scrapers work, and it hides the fact that you need to be thinking about strategies for dealing with stuff like that if you're in a field which is content rich. David in the audience pointed out that quite a lot of these local directories and so on do this. He's saying that Groupon is doing very similar stuff. It's just listing businesses. It's not their content. It's nothing original. They're just scraping it from elsewhere, really, but they're doing very well with it because they've got a high authority domain. When your articles get lifted by, you know, bigger sites, this can happen, and you have to think of strategies to deal with this. You know, one thing is obviously make sure that your articles make people want more, and they'll have to search for you to find them. Another thing, go on, Grog.
Well, I was going to say, I think the thing is, when we look at these old sites that might be the originators versus the new sites, the user experience is so much better on the new sites. That's factored in from the engagement metrics, from the idea of what's that, you know. So if you do a better job, you build a better mousetrap, you're going to do better, even with the similar content or the same content. So we can't. I mean, and look, we're just a listing site. We get housing listings from everyone. Everyone has the same stuff. The thing is just to offer a better user experience as well, so people do bookmark, talk about you, come back to you, click on you in the SERP. You know, these are all indicators that you're higher value than maybe one of your competitors, or lower value.
It's adding more value, isn't it? It's like, even if they're taking, rightly or wrongly, the original and then just appending something extra to it that actually gives a little bit more value.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly that. And there was no point in that hangout where Google said you should just use the original content. You shouldn't create original content. What they said was, if you're not adding value, rewording it. If you're rewording it just for the sake of rewording it, if you're spinning it and adding no new value to it, don't bother. It's a waste of time. It's not a signal. It's not going to help you.
And that is the big thing about the quality raters guidelines and everything else. It's just basically saying, oi, add value, the whole eat, the whole everything else, and if you can't, then what's the point?
Meet needs. It's just meet needs, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the exact thing is, you've got to satisfy the person's intent within that page, for that page to exist. And that's exactly what they say in the quality raters guidelines. They say, why should this page be here? And does the page answer the inferred intent on it? And that's really the key. And if you're doing better job at doing that than someone that's been out there for years, then you're going to, hopefully, you're going to rank better. Wow. Kristin's like completely intent. That was amazing. I must be the most interesting man in the world. Give me a Dos Equis. Is that what it is? Okay, good.
The last one I did was, it was a network, had 1,000 instances of everything when I tested for it in Google. So I took it off the site, nothing happened, put it back with it spun, and I added schema, and la-di-da. We're now
So like schema made the difference, right?
I don't know. That's why I don't talk about it much.
But you added something to it. So effectively, you took it and appended something to it in reality.
Just reword it
Yeah, but you added schema.
The same descriptions and reworded them.
But you added schema, so that's your point, isn't it?
That's why I can't say that just changing the words did it.
Yeah, but you added schema. So you added something extra. I
added my other magic stuff.
If you change the words,
sprinkle, fairy dust.
If you change the words for better words, you know, if you're changing a description, and what you're doing is making them more user-centric. You're including a bit more insight, a bit more user guide, a bit more expert opinion, comparing it to other products. That's all adding value. It's changing the description, but it's not just changing the words. It's changing the usefulness.
What have been the right way to do that would to have been add the schema, see what happens, and then change.
There you go.
And see what happens.
Because what you're saying, Terry, is that duplicate content doesn't exist when you change the content.
Yeah. or here's the other thing. This is why I think it's a penalty, because that wouldn't rank until I made it not duplicate. So
yeah, well,
you can't rank.
You sometimes have to apply bits of logic. I mean,
that's what I mean.
When two different pages on two different sites have duplicate content, they don't have duplicate content because, of course, the header, the navigation menu, the footer are different between those sites. And sometimes that's bigger than the article.
And all the links
on your site,
just do what they said and basically let them figure it out. You aren't going to get the same results as if you figure it out for them.
On your site, every page has the same header. Every page has the same footer. Most of them will have the exact same navigation menu. Now, it may change a bit within categories. So Google is well used to the idea that there's a lot of duplicate content out there.
Right.
It doesn't cause a penalty. It doesn't. And yeah, that filtering is built in, which is why different pages of your site can rank for different things, even though 3/4 of that page is duplicated, you know.
Yeah. Understood. I think that's like being around for a long time, that the page was segmented into what they knew was duplicate and what was main content.
I was talking about this with Dawn the other week on Twitter and saying it was one of the most interesting experiments I did. Was to take a site, it was a relatively small site, but to get rid of all of the default elements just to see what would happen. I changed the navigation menu on every single page. No two pages had the same navigation links. I had some similarity in there to give it some sort of consistency, but I would change a couple of words in every single link, or I would change the order of them, and just generally break down that shingling as much as I possibly could. It was a nightmare project because, of course, the user wants conformity, consistency, the ability to predict what's going to happen. So it's not something you could use for a client, but as an educational exercise to see what it would do for Google, it was fascinating. I recommend anyone try the same sort of thing themselves. You know, you should be testing things. You should be looking for all kinds of things just for your own sake of learners.
So we kind of sculpt our main navigation to do that kind of thing, whereby we silo more, so the user sees the same navigation that search engines don't. I like that. Duplicate doesn't exist when you change. Oh, ha ha! Well done, Gina. It's funny. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to differentiate what search engines see, so they see more focused content, and we're trying to internal link where it makes sense around our money pages, just to give that thing. I mean, there's lots of challenges we have, don't get me wrong, but like every other site, I see that our privacy policy has 20 million links going to it, and I go, that's probably not the best idea, you know? So those are simple things, but you know, you can find anything. Any site has those kind of challenges. And you know, Dawn, we have 105 million pages. It's really easy to screw up with a little change, and really hard to isolate to test as well. It's not as easy as you think.
No, I can imagine. I can imagine. And if you make one slight mess on that template, then it's off and away, isn't it? Doing and Google's in and thinning out all sorts of crap everywhere, and you know.
Yeah. It's great to add schema to one template. That was easy, but you can also we also do things at scale. I always say you can do things at scale, which is brilliant on a big site, but then you can also screw up things at scale. Yeah. Which is something that we're having fun with as well. So it's all good.
And the wonderful one is when you've got that one exception. It's like doing a dynamic description. Oh well, we've got this field here in the database. This makes a great description. Let's put this as the description tag, and then you find that one category where the descriptions are awful, and it is going to be a nightmare. And you know it's so easy for that kind of stuff to happen. It's so easy for one isolated thing to just make it all look bad.
Well, we can make changes at scale, and we can update stuff relatively easily based on a homegrown CMS. But one of our other sister sites does all their content management on a site that has millions of pages through WordPress. So they basically use that as the repository.
Oh my God.
It works. I mean, it works really well for them as opposed to building their own. You know, they basically just make the calls via the API to WordPress to call the content, and they just use it as easier to format, easier to add, and everything else. So we don't do that, but they do, and it's been very successful for them.
So they use the homegrown CMS.
No, we use a homegrown. We use a homegrown CMS.
Okay.
Yeah, homes.com, but they use WordPress to pull things together. I mean, it's cool. You got to know what you're doing to make that connector work, but they've done it really well. So yeah, we do the homegrown stuff that doesn't work. Joking. It works really good. Works really good. Works really good.
Joking. You want to say too loudly, Terry.
It works really good.
You won't be drinking the coffee anyone else makes you for a while.
It's okay. No one listens to this. Thank God, Ammon. Well done.
I do get people saying, why doesn't this have a bigger audience? Why don't you promote it? There's two things to that. One, when Bill and I started this, we'd come straight from another previous series, and it took a lot of work, and we were there was hours went into each and every episode of the Asusi chat. And when Bill and I started this, we went, look, we want this to be as simple as possible. So we won't plan topics. We won't spend weeks chasing guests, which, happened every single episode for Asusi. It took weeks to arrange some of the guests and to organise the schedules and all the rest. We don't do that. What we want is an event that takes less time to set up than to have. And this is the result. Yeah,
it works.
And then they took their biggest fan and then put her on the show with them.
Christine, is it sunny there? Is it lovely weather there?
Yeah, it's actually kind of overcast today.
Is it warm?
Yeah.
It's Arizona. It's warm.
I'm just jealous of anybody who's in the sun at the moment.
It's like 120 degrees in Arizona today.
Really? So it's always warm there?
It's usually not that warm.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It's not record breaking, but it's close.
But Arizona's mostly known for its desert.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Listen, geography is not my strong subject.
Me neither. We're playing Jeopardy with the kids this weekend, and every category that had anything to do with geography, I pointed to the little one. This is fresh in your head. I know it is. I don't know it.
I really, geography is not a good subject for me. When I went on my honeymoon many years ago, I couldn't work out why there were 2 days missing from the actual hotel booking when I was going to Vegas, then Florida. I assumed they were next door to each other. Didn't realise that there's actually loads of flights in between. And why have I got 12 hotel nights and it's a 14-night trip? So I didn't realise that America is so huge, and
Huge. Things are so big here.
I know.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a bit thick, but geography is not a strong subject. More so now that I travel more, because obviously I've been to quite a lot of places now. And Australia as well, that's absolutely massive. Absolutely huge.
It sounds funny. So Australia is about the same size as America, which is about the same size as most of Europe. So I'm a 10-hour drive from New York.
Really? Wow, God.
And I'm about a 9-hour drive from Miami.
Wow.
I'm kind of in the middle.
Well, why would you want to go there?
Yeah, but then again, if you're going to measure drives in hours, London is about 10 hours across.
Yeah. You fly everywhere in America? Do you fly everywhere? Do you not?
Well, because it's kind of nice to take a drive up the East Coast sometimes.
So
I can
10
drive
hours?
up here. Well, you go through DC. Like I just drove up there with my son. We went through DC, went through Hershey, Pennsylvania, where the chocolate place is, and then went through New Jersey, went along the Jersey shores, and then went into New York.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not too bad. You stop off a couple of times, stay with some friends in Maryland. I mean, you go different states.
Yeah,
different states
you do
have
that a
different
lot over
alcohol.
there. You just go off, all go off on these massive road trips and stuff. It's
Massive
not
road trips.
They are massive though, aren't they? They're like really long road trips. They last for days, don't they?
Well, that was, I guess the thing is, it's like anything. If you want to go somewhere and see the countryside, it's pretty nice. If you want to drive across the Arizona desert, you're going to die.
Yeah, I reckon that, I don't know, I think you could probably drive from one end of England to the other in like a day, easily.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done Land's End to Giant Groats.
Well,
It's about 8 hours.
The longest drive you can do in the Netherlands is about 4 hours, and then you've seen the whole country.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's the flattest drive in the world. I was chatting to Barry Adams at Sascon about the flatness of the Netherlands last week whilst we were watching the football, and he was saying, yes, apparently they have to like build ramps so that people can do their driving tests. There's no hill starts available.
God.
True.
Gina says that she loves to drive from California to Montana or Utah. It takes a couple of days.
Wow.
There you go. You stop off at the the Narrows National Park. I mean, it's really cool around there. There are like 5 national parks in Utah you can go to. It's great. So in Holland, do they actually have cars, or there's only bicycles? I'm joking.
They have bicycles. Wait, do you remember? But I know, do you remember we were chatting about bicycles and you were telling me that everybody has loads because everybody just nicks their bikes off them all the time?
On average, we have 3.5 bicycles per person.
Well, what about the Google April Fool's Day joke of the self-driving bike? That was pretty cool. That was done by
cool.
the Dutch Google guys, yeah? It was very cool.
It was.
No, I like Holland. It's kind of good.
I couldn't believe it because I had to go through there on the way to Valencia, and when I was like coming in on the aeroplane, it literally was looking at Discworld. It is the flattest place I've ever seen in my. It was like a Monopoly board. It was just flat as anything. There's like no hills whatsoever.
When you look out my
Discworld,
window,
in case
there's
anyone
nothing.
missed that this was a geek panel, Discworld gets mentioned, of course.
It's just like flat. Like the world is definitely flat there.
So the tallest place in Virginia, where I am, in my area here, is called Mount Trashmore, because it's basically the old trash dump, the rubbish dump, and it's I think the elevation is about 40 feet or something.
Oh my
in
God.
the area I'm at. I mean, look out the window. It's just flat out the window.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you don't get much flatness in the Pennines.
I can realise that.
Yeah.
Well, so the Pennines is the whole Windermere, and is that the Lake District?
No. It's the hills.
Pennine Way. The Pennine Way.
Yorkshire, isn't it? It's like West Yorkshire.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like 7 hills that are. Yeah, it's really hilly. Yeah, around here.
The Pennine Way.
The Pennine Way.
Way.
Yeah, it's really kind of hilly. Yeah, around here.
You've upset people now. They thought the Pennine Way was a martial art of the northeast. You know.
Very funny.
There's just 7 hills all around. Quite really massive hills.
How many are there?
7.
That was a joke.
But it's apparently it's I don't know. It's something it mirrors somewhere in Rome. You know, Rome had like 7 hills or whatever around it.
It's one of those old magic numbers. 7 was always a really important number in mythology and in
septenary.
You know, the 7th son of a 7th son is the wizard.
Perfection, like is 7, isn't it?
Yeah. So Brighton, you've got 7 dials. Of course, southeast you've got 7 sisters, which was 7 hills, I believe, as well. So you know, these things were always picked up by people.
Yeah.
Oh, see, there you go. So we went off on a tangent because Dawn didn't know where she was going.
Well, I just saw that Kristin had a nice sundress on. I was really envious. I've not had a chance to wear a sundress in the UK this year at all.
Me neither.
I like my sundresses. I'm like,
I get my sundresses at Walgreens.
I did. Oh, you would not believe the amount of clothes I took to Australia.
Yeah, you had the swimsuits, the bikinis, the summer there. You thought, I'm gonna go out. I'll have a bit of sun tanning while I'm there.
I did. No, absolutely. And in the end, I ended up wearing my like thick coat, jeans, trainers. You know, if I'd have had a bobble hat, I'd have put that on as well. But it was the worst of it was because the weather. Because it's their winter and I wasn't sure what clothes I would need, you have to take loads more. Because you
loads.
Yeah, we're saying.
Just checking.
Yeah.
It's only fair. That's the sun streaming through the window right now.
Yeah, that'd be glorious there. Oh God. What's it like there? What's it like there, Anu? What's the weather like?
Well, over here at the moment.
Yeah.
Rainy, but last week was pretty awesome.
Was it?
Yeah. Well, at sea it was. Well, not in Amsterdam. So, but how's the weather in London for Thursday and Friday?
I don't know. I've not checked really. I'll have a look actually. I hope it's nice actually. Not that we'll see a lot of it.
We might.
What's that? No, it's red.
We just heard Moscow is built on 7 hills as well.
Ah.
Well, no, but I think you were talking about Athens, Dawn, being not Rome. I think Athens is on 7 hills.
I can't remember, but something is built on.
It's close. It's close. Athens, Rome.
No, geography was not my strong point.
Or getting to airports on time.
Don't talk about it.
I might have had something to do with that at some point.
Well, you gave her the wrong bus.
No, that was the first one. The second one, she overslept. She woke up 10 minutes before the plane left.
You were supposed to say that on the show. You can see her face.
Yeah, we'll edit that bit out on YouTube, he said, lying completely.
Exactly.
I know you need to clarify that because that sounds bad and it's not what people are thinking.
Oh, you know that, Dawn. She'll just sleep right through things.
It was just a late night out, I would say then.
Yeah. Keep digging. You only reckon. Okay, that was good. No, but it was all good. It was all good. We had a really good little webinar earlier. I just saw Anton in the audience, but Dawn, that was a nice one on social media generally, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, really good because obviously when we've got all this hoo-ha where there's this huge debate often where people say social media is a ranking factor, then Google comes back and says no, it's not, and then people say yes, it is. Then Google comes back and says no, it's not, and I must admit, when I got invited to that, I thought it's probably going to be maybe a little bone of contention, but it wasn't. I think the whole general consensus was that it's not a direct ranking factor in that you get a share and suddenly you get like ranking impact, but the amplification means that you get an opportunity to connect with people that maybe they will link to you because they get a chance to see stuff. I mean, there's so much content that just lies around on the web. that if it didn't get promoted via social media, it's just never going to get found.
I loved that we managed to include the reference to pay-per-click as well. You know, there's so many people have realised, oh yes, social media can be an amplification factor. Yeah, so can pay-per-click. That thing of doing discovery and getting people to find it originally so that they will then link to it so that it will then rank organically. Pay-per-click is brilliant for that. You do a short pay-per-click campaign.
Exactly, especially if you have a nice curated Twitter list with when you're at certain projects. It works a charm for a lot of journalists.
But not even the paid social, but actual pay-per-click, AdWords, AdSense, that kind of thing can work.
But just look at backlink profiles where you see CGIGs, so Google Click IDs in the backlinks. That is basically exactly it.
Yeah. All our campaigns have a paid component to it for that reason. But I mean, it was like 4 years ago at SMX London, the question was asked again, and Miley basically said, you know, it's not going to be a ranking factor, it's too easy to game, but it helps with discovery, and it might not be, you know, it might have been more, but you'll get discovered quicker. And so if we hear a lot of chatter going on, we'll go and have a look. So I don't think their message has changed.
Exactly, and especially with the Twitter basically tweet host that goes into Google, when it gets a certain amount of retweets, it gets some traction. Google needs to know what it is about.
Well, that's where the conversation is there. Then there's a chance that I'm doing quite a lot of research at the moment into some of the old crawling stuff, and there's a guy whose paper, he's not from Google, but his paper gets cited a lot in all the crawling stuff, and he talks about what they call the search engines, the embarrassment factor. And the embarrassment factor is to do with they didn't know when something happened, and they didn't return the right results to a query quickly enough, and others did. So obviously, Twitter obviously allows them, well, it helps them to overcome that embarrassment factor, because something's got lots and lots of visibility as subjects, then it's going to rise up, so to speak.
So there's another component to that based on, once again, I keep coming back to the search quality guidelines, because they're basically saying, you know, is something worthy of being news? And that's another interesting fact, because it ties into the embarrassment factor, because there's stuff you want to show as trending because it's worthy trending, and there's other stuff that you maybe don't want to show. It's not really newsworthy, but there's a lot of chatter around it. You just want to make sure that well, I'm sure they filter out between categories as well, and say, if this is newsworthy, we're going to show it more likely for a news type query than something else that might be more informational, or might be more information, maybe wrong word, maybe more entertainment focused, you know?
The biggest
after TMZ beat Google to basically scooping the Jackson death, they suddenly made freshness a very important factor.
There you go.
That's why it happens. It's
the
not
biggest part.
Embarrassment.
The biggest part of embarrassment
Google
is...
can return things. They can, if you publish something now, they have it in some cases in the results within seconds.
Well, they've got the real-time API now as well, haven't they? For
it's not just Twitter though.
No, but they've got the
Google Plus. I've seen it with websites as well.
Yeah, but they've got the real-time index now as well, haven't they? So they've got the API thing going on as well with news sites that news sites can use to, that new thing that they've brought out where you can use the real-time index API now as a news site to actually get stuff, connect via that API, so it literally is like immediacy. So, and I mean, obviously, the homepage of CNN is going to be like crawled every, a few seconds or something.
The biggest issue is you get something like a disaster. God forbid, if there's a shooting at some big event. The last thing you want is somebody, I've just heard this has happened, so I go searching for it, I put the event name in. The last thing I want is hey, look at this, we're the best event in the world, look how happy it is, don't you wish you were here? when I'm searching to try and find out if one of my relatives is still alive.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important, this what we call burstiness, when something comes out very quickly and often changes the meaning or at least the context. That's what you have to be able to react to very, very quickly. There's a ton of information out there on burstiness. It's well worth everyone looking at. It's different to freshness.
So burstiness with sentiment analysis as well, with analysing social chatter to understand whether it's good or bad, analysing what's happening good and bad. I think that's, I mean, first off, it's amazing that search engines are able to process and do that almost in real time. But it's an interesting fact if you want to get in the news, if you want to get, piggyback on some kind of event, you've got to make sure you add that element to it, I guess, so that you do get other people talking about you. You do have a different spin that makes sense. I'd hate to be a news thing. Yeah.
Does anybody do anything ever with Google Correlate?
No.
Right, so no, that is an amazing tool actually. If you read, there's a really interesting story behind the Google Correlate tool. They introduced it a few years ago to find a correlation. It was something to do with flu in America. They wanted to find out something. Google News use it all the time, from what I can gather. And what they're looking for is connections. Yeah. So they were trying to help. I can't remember. They were trying to help identify the places where flu was breaking out at a particular epidemic. Yeah. Different areas of the US. Yeah. So they correlated. When people started searching for cold remedies, that flu was breaking out there. Yeah, so I'm sure that they use a lot of that correlation stuff somehow with search. Yeah, somehow. Yeah, and around subjects and so on. So have a look at that. Google Correlate. It's an amazing set of tools actually.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot that an SEO can do with similar kinds of things. And one of the things is to use a kind of keyword hedge betting. Think of things that are coming up that affect your industry and consider having an article written each way on how that decision could go or what could happen at the event ready.
We have a lot of stuff prepared for weather events, so how to make your home hurricane ready, or what to do when it's 100 degrees plus. Yep. And we seed those out. But we have a slew ready. I mean, we keep updating them. It's not like they're static. We keep updating because you want to jump on this in a nice way. Maybe it's the 100th day of sunshine in Texas, or something like that. But we try and make sure we are ready. But it's a good idea. But we also want to second guess what might not be happening or jump on current events. So
if you haven't already done this, Grant, you can have this one for free. But also do one on allergies, because eczema and asthma are both related to things like dust mites, and making your house eczema and asthma resistant is a big deal. It's something they discovered when they were researching the country with the least in the world, which was Sweden. And they were, well, what's different about Sweden? Well, they tend to have wooden floors, no carpets. They tend to have at that time, they were one of the countries using quilts when a lot of people were still using sheets and blankets. And they discovered that, that a lot of the ways of living in Sweden, the ordinary ways of life, correlated with less asthma, less eczema. And I know that people do still search for that kind of thing. So it's something to consider.
We've got some of that. We've got some of that stuff. And also, just we're jumping on current events. Sorry, your hair looks good. We're jumping on current events. This week is Independence Day, the movie. So we just launched a video game, Defend Your Homes.
Yes, I did see that.
Cool.
Yes.
I did see that.
I put a link onto that correlate thing on the right hand side. It's really good because you can actually draw a line and it will tell you what searches that correlate to that particular line you've drawn. So if you're doing like a squiggly thing or a hump or something, it actually tells you what searches actually anywhere in the US match that that line. It's quite a good little tool, actually.
That'd be a way to match up entities with their knowledge graph notation.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wish I could find the site that does correlations between silly things.
I got
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Seen that.
Ranking and social activity.
It's
No,
like
it's
you can.
silly correlations.
Is that what it's called? Silly correlations.
It's not, I don't think it's silly. Hold on, I've got it somewhere. I'm just going through my bookmarks.
It's just one of those. It's just one of those. Oh, spirillous correlations.
That's it.
Tyler Vegan. TylerVegan.com.
Yeah.
So U.S. spending on space technology and suicides by hanging, strangulation, and suffocation. So it basically finds ridiculous correlations. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Tyler
Fun stuff.
Vegan. Yes. Fun. Well, that's not really fun.
We
Number of
are
people who
getting to the
drowned.
top of the hour.
Number of people who drowned by falling into a pool correlates with films Nicolas Cage appeared in.
Yes.
I think we were trying to dig into something that correlated with why Valentine's Day. What day is Valentine's Day? Only had like certain years where it spiked, on certain days. And John Mueller jumped in on the conversation, and he showed me correlate. And he didn't conclude this, but I concluded that it was something to do with tattoos. People search for tattoos around Valentine's Day. And when you expand it, you think, well, I'm wondering whether they're trying to work out if the tattoo shop is going to be open, on or around the day of Valentine's Day. So it's weird because it does make you start thinking a little bit outside the box. So yeah, there's definitely a correlation between Valentine's Day and searches for tattoos.
And 2 weeks later, it's tattoo removal.
Probably, yeah.
The first time.
How to remove my ex's name.
That's
The first time I did a partnership with an old friend of mine at Fresh Egg and went to do some work with them. He decided he was taking me out to dinner, and unfortunately it was Valentine's Day. So two guys are walking into restaurants, and of course they've got the candles on the tables and the music playing. I have never felt so embarrassed in my life. It is a nightmare day to go out if you're not celebrating Valentine's Day. It really is.
That's Brighton, isn't it?
It's near Brighton, so it didn't raise any eyebrows, which makes it even worse. We are near the top of the hour, so a very quick round of what we're up to in the coming week. Let me go left to right. Oh no, what are you up to this week?
Well, waiting for a visa. Hopefully I can get it by tomorrow, and then off to Ungagged. So that should be good. Meeting up with Dawn and possibly some other people. So looking forward to that.
Cool. Dawn? You muted?
You muted, Dawn.
Same thing. I'm off to Ungagged. I'm speaking at Ungagged, actually. So
it's a very good one. So yeah.
I heard it's a really, really hardcore SEO conference. So that'll be good. I'm looking forward to that. So yeah.
Grant?
I am not talking at Ungagged, and I'm not going there. I'm not pissed at all. Don't feel bad about that. Okay. Really digging in and sailing, not at the same time. So digging into what's up with traffic and
digging
sailing.
and sailing doesn't work. It makes the boat
Not
leak.
really. So I'm off sailing tonight, and I'll be sailing tomorrow. And at the weekend's going to be the Bayou Boogaloo in the local park, which is a bit of New Orleans coming to Norfolk, Virginia. So yes.
Excellent. Kristin?
I don't know.
Good plan.
I'm not going to Ungagged. Ungagged?
There you go.
Right. Yeah,
Terry?
just doing more like the fun stuff, with devs, pretty much.
Terry, what are you up to this week?
This week, well, I got a site index, went from 100 to 4,000 URLs in one day, so fix that problem, and now it's identifying the low-hanging fruit and doing the real work.
And scratching your head because there were only 1,000 pages. How did I get 4,000 indexed?
Oh, we're pretty close, actually. Pretty good.
Cool. And I have no idea what I'm up to this week. I've got so many different bits and bobs to do that I'm not going to be able to do them all, so I've got to kind of prioritise. I don't know yet which one's going to get through. But anyway, we've got a Bing Q&A coming up next week, so looking forward to that. Anton will tell you more about that. For us this week, that's all, and time to turn off the Matrix.